Do you have a pretty much bone stock Surron like this one, but you want your bike to be all upgraded and fancy like this, but you don't know where to start? Woo! Stay tuned. So if you clicked on this video, I'm gonna assume that your bike is pretty close to stock and you haven't upgraded or ordered many aftermarket parts or pieces for your Surron. So we're gonna go over 5 things that I would do first if I had a bone stock Surron Light B. So the first upgrade that I would highly recommend is upgrading your braking system, because this is kind of a controversial video to make because everyone has a different riding style and everyone has a different end goal that they want out of their bike. Some people just want to make it go as fast as they can. Some people want to set it up with not much power, but it can handle some big jumps, and everybody else is far and in between. No matter what your riding style is or your riding location might be, you're gonna need better brakes than what comes on these bikes stock. If you don't have many miles on your bike, you may be saying, Justin, my brakes are fine. Well, let me just tell you, go ahead and ride the bike a couple hundred miles and see if they still feel just fine. And depending on your riding skill level, you're gonna want better brakes, or at least upgrade the brakes that are already on the bike. Now, right here in front of me, I have my buddy's Surron, and then I have my Surron. On this bike, we are running the Slate Evo made by TRP with the factory caliper that comes on the Surron with an upgraded 220 rotor. On my bike, I'm running the Hope Tech 4 V4s, which comes with all new stainless braided brake lines, new master cylinders, new levers, new calipers, along with a 220 rotor. Now, I know what some people may be thinking, I'm not sure if I know how to swap the entire brakes, and that's fine. Depending on your mechanic skill level and your riding skill level, you may not have to. You can take your factory master cylinder, your factory lever, and your factory brake lines and just upgrade the brake pads. One huge thing with the stock Surron brakes is the pads are garbage. You want to upgrade with some Shimano or some TRP brake pads. I will try my best to link those down below in the description box. So no matter if you're going to be hitting big jumps or just doing 100 miles an hour, either way you want to have some upgraded brakes. You can go all out with some Hope Tech 4s. You can be somewhere in the middle with some Slate Evos made by TRP. You can opt to do a rear rotor upgrade or a front rotor upgrade. Or you can even keep your factory Surron brakes, upgrade the lever, which is not shown, but they do make upgraded levers that will give you more leverage. Remove these factory brake pads and swap those out with some TRP brake pads or some Shimano brake pads. The next upgrade that I am a huge fan of is having a taller handlebar height. Whether you achieve that running the factory bars with just a lift, or if you run taller bars, or even both like I have on my bike. I highly recommend a direct mount, handlebar mount, which will actually mount your handlebars directly to the triple clamp, this top clamp up here, to where anytime that the bike falls over, whether it's in the garage or you take a big spill out on the trail, your handlebars are always going to be straight and in a fixed position on the triple clamp. I will note that the Warp 9 direct mount stem is set up for the factory diameter handlebar, but it also comes with some billet aluminum shims to where you can run more of a moto setup with a Renthal twin wall bar. Now, if you want a taller handlebar height, but you want to keep your factory bars because you like the shape of them or the bend of them or even the pullback, you can go ahead and run the Warp 9 direct mount with your factory triple clamps and your factory bars. And this is going to give you, I want to say, 20 millimeters of lift. So if anybody is wondering what I mean by direct mount, right now your handlebars mount to this, and that mounts to a stem that comes off the bottom of this triple clamp and up through the frame, and then it just clamps on here. So if you take a spill, your handlebars are going to be way crooked, your triple clamps could possibly be off, and it's going to move your headlight and everything, and it's just going to be a mess trying to get everything straightened back out. So when you take away the mounting position of the handlebars on this stem and you mount them directly to the triple clamp, that's one less thing that you have to worry about getting all tweaked up whenever you have a spill. Now this next one is gonna be our third topic. So I guess I should make the topic suspension. If you're gonna be doing a lot of jumps, you definitely wanna upgrade your front forks, whether that's with a Fast Ace 2.0, which I do have a discount code for. I highly recommend the Fast Ace 2.0, especially if you're just gonna be doing some mild jumping. It's more than enough and a quality fork for the money. And then there's also some more expensive options out there, like the EXT fork. But when I say suspension, there's a lot more than just the forks and the rear shock. You have this entire linkage setup along with the bolts. Now these are the strongest bolts that are sold on the market, and I highly recommend purchasing these. I do have these on my website, justknocksmith.com. These are much, much stronger than the factory linkage bolts, and I'm a little bit over 200 pounds. And my friend that jumps that bike is over 230 pounds, and these bolts have not had a single problem. The factory bolts, we were bending and breaking them all the time. So you can upgrade your triangle, which is this part right here. Some people have had those break. You can upgrade your linkage, which has some garbage bushings from the factory. This is a Warp 9 V3 greasable linkage, along with a Warp 9 triangle, with the upgraded bolt kit and a 550 rear spring, which makes it stiffer to match the front and handle a lot bigger jumps. That will have your suspension pretty dialed in. Now I have 4 Surrons here within reaching distance in the shop. None of them have stock foot pegs. Does that tell you anything? I would highly, highly recommend upgrading the foot pegs, and I've got a few options here to show you. Now my bike, I opted to wait. Yes, they take a while to come in, but I do have the prickly foot pegs. These are the absolute biggest Surron foot pegs sold that I'm aware of on the market. Really good grip with these pins that are actual bolts that go through the foot peg. Unlike some foot pegs that are just pins that thread down in here, these are actual bolts that come up and go through. So really high quality foot pegs, and I do recommend the prickly foot pegs if you're wanting to wait a little while. Now these foot pegs are actually the IMS foot pegs, and these are off of a 2023 CRF 110. Now that's what they're designed for. These don't come factory on a CRF 110, but these are made for a CRF 110. So if you want to hop on a more motorcycle website, or if you have a nice pit bike laying around that you don't care to rob the pegs off of, CRF 110 foot pegs will fit on a Surron. Pretty cool. Then you have the Amazon specials. Now the rider hasn't had a single problem out of these Amazon foot pegs, but these are kind of hit or miss. I have had a couple of sets that will bend really, really easily, depending on what distributor or who's making them in China, I guess, depending on what day it is. I'm really not sure. Sometimes they will bend something awful down here. I actually have a set of these that are super, super bent. Let me show you. So this is supposed to be straight up and down and mounts to the frame. So if that's straight up and down, why is this foot peg pointing all the way down? That's because the entire foot peg is literally bent and caved in. And as you can see right there, you can see where this is curved. So I'm not a huge fan of the Amazon foot pegs, but that all also depends on the rider weight. I'm kind of on the heavy side, so I wanted to for sure opt and go with a high quality foot peg. And last but not least, guys, my 5th mod that I would highly, highly recommend, pretty much wheels and tires. You don't have to necessarily buy wheels, but you definitely need to at least upgrade the tires. Depending on what you're doing, the stock CST tires that come on these Surrons don't last long, and they offer little to no traction. Now, as you all have seen in this video, pretty much every Surron that's in my shop right now has the Shinko 241s. This is great if you're doing a lot of on-road / urban riding. If you're doing strictly trails and hunting, I would opt to go with something a little bit more aggressive. But I have had these wheels and tires on a few trails, and I've never had an issue, never washed the front end. Of course, this is just a ride for fun bike. If you are opting to race your bike or just be really, really hard on it in the trails, you definitely want to go with something that has a little bit bigger and sharper knobbies to give you a little bit more traction, especially in the rear. The reason that I say upgrade the wheels is because these Warp 9 wheels have thicker spokes, and then they also have a better quality like actual hoop. And then I also really like the billet nicer hubs, because this bike right here still has the factory wheels on it, and needless to say, they're far from perfect. On top of that, I have my original wheels hanging up over here that are in dire need of a good spoke check, and they really need trued because they are all warped. The spokes are just thin, they're loose, they're crappy quality. I'm not a fan of the stock wheels that come on the Surron, but if you're not trail riding and you're not jumping, riding around town doing wheelies or whatever you're doing, they probably will hold up fine, and you could get away with just throwing some nicer tires on. Okay, so that's gonna be all for today's video. I hope you all enjoyed it. My next video is gonna be going over every single part and piece with a price list of what all is done to my Surron, because I've done so much to my Surron. It's crazy. Whenever it was bone stock, I was like, oh, I'll throw some tires on it. And that's where it started. I put tires on it, and then I was like, order this, order this, order this, order this, read about this in the forum, read about this in the forum. I went down the rabbit hole, guys, and now me and my buddy have pretty much fully modded Surrons. I have a speed controller on mine, the Torp, and I just want to tell you all, Hawk 5, Hawk 5, is valid on Torp's website until November 5th. So if it's not November 5th and you're wanting to buy a Torp speed controller and save 5%, go ahead and hop on to Torp and use my code. With that being said, guys, that's gonna be all for today's video. I hope you all enjoyed it. Always remember, everybody starts out as nobody, and I'll see you in the next one. Peace.